Hello and welcome back to our channel. My name is Anne and this is Postcards from Our Golden Years. So today it's just me. Jeff is actually in another part of the apartment taking care of a project. We'll show you that when we finish. We're having our guest room sort of fixed up a bit to make more space for storage and make it look nice. So he's working on that, and I decided it was a great time for me to come over here and chat.
I watch you as you drive. Do you know I'm looking? And I can't help but smile. Do you know how much I love you? You put my favorite song on. I put my feet up and we just sing along. And I can't help but feeling, just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would? 'Cause I'm just loving.
If you've been following a number of creators, YouTube creators, content creators here in France, perhaps you have seen that lately people are starting to talk about what it costs to live here in France. There are a couple of ladies, one that I follow religiously, Janice in France, who is a good friend of ours. And recently I've started taking a look at a channel called Elder Gal, who is a lady who is not living here permanently, but she's left the US. Anyway, they have most recently been talking about what it costs to live where they are in France. And Janice in France, if you follow her channel, then you know that she lives outside of Paris, that lucky lady. But she is benefiting because she lives outside of the city. She's not paying those very expensive rental costs. It does cost a lot to live in Paris. And that was always my dream, and I had to set that dream aside and find some place that was more affordable. So if you're new to my channel, my husband Jeff and I and our little dog Bella, we sold almost everything we owned. I would say 90% of what we owned. We packed up the rest and we left the United States from Southwest Florida and came to live in the south of France. And one of the first things that people said to us when we were thinking about moving is, oh, the south of France, the Côte d'Azur, Nice, oh my gosh. It must be very expensive to live there. You guys must be rich. Let me tell you, you don't have to be rich. We were just as shocked as many of you will be by the time you finish watching this video. The south of France has this very exotic sound, like, oh my goodness, this is where the rich and famous go to live. Well, I'm sure there are quite a few rich and famous people who do live here on the Côte d'Azur. We're not two of them. However, when we decided that we wanted to retire someplace outside of the US, someplace that we loved, France, of course, was on the top of our list. And why wouldn't it be? So we've had so many requests from people asking us questions. How did you get your television? How do you watch television in the US? Can you afford electric? How much does electric cost? What does cable cost? What do you do about those 4-digit security codes? How do you deal with that? Doesn't that mean you have to have multiple telephone lines? How do you do all kinds of things? So the purpose of my video today is to talk about how we can afford to live here in the south of France, in Nice, France, and how it is much less expensive than living in Florida. First of all, when we think about how much rent we are paying, let me just tell you, when we lived in Naples, Florida, we lived in a neighborhood, not a really fancy neighborhood with gates and golf courses. We lived in a non-gated community. We lived in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house on a canal in a neighborhood that was made up of mostly professional people and a few blue-collar people, maybe a scattering of retired people. The property alone was probably where all the value of the money, or where all the value was. We rented a home. It was about 1,600 square feet. And for that, by the time we were leaving, we paid $3,000 a month in rent, and we were on the low side of rents in that part of Florida. So we know we had, for Florida, for Naples, Florida, we had a deal on that house in that part of Florida. I don't think that we or anybody else could find a house that was that size on a canal to rent for $3,000 today. So we went from renting that $3,000 a month home to renting an apartment here in Nice, France. Now, here in Nice, France, we didn't need 1,600 square feet. So we have an apartment. Some of you may have seen it in an apartment tour video that we did months ago, last year, I guess, actually, after we got settled. And so our apartment is probably just under 700 square feet. So it's about half the size of the house that we were living in. And of course, we don't have a garage, but we do have a lovely terrace. We have 2 terraces, one in the front that overlooks the street, and one in the back that's more of a back of the house kind of terrace. It's got clotheslines and things for hanging laundry if we want to do that. But there's nothing really nice to see there, so we don't spend a whole lot of time on that terrace. In fact, we never spend any time there. So when we were looking for a place to rent, we were looking for something that was in the range of between 1,200 euros a month and 1,850 euros a month. We figured we could go as high as 1,850. Technically, we could go over 2,000, but we didn't want to spend all that much money on rent. So we managed to find an apartment that was in the mid-teens. Let's round it off and say 1,500 a month. We have a 2-bedroom apartment with 1 bathroom, marble floors throughout, in a building with an elevator, gorgeous front terrace, did not come with air conditioning, but we have managed to buy portable air conditioners. And of course, Jeff did a video months ago, last summer, showing everybody how we installed portable air conditioners. And when summertime comes, we'll be doing that again. So we've already reduced the cost of living, just the roof over our head, from 3,000 to, in round numbers, 1,500. So, and while we're talking about what it costs for an apartment, people always ask, well, tell me, what does it cost to rent an apartment there? That is not an easy question. And here's the reason why. First of all, the cost depends on, one, the location. Then it depends on, do you want a building that has an elevator? Okay. Do you want a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom? Will you be happy with a studio? Do you want it to be furnished or unfurnished? Let's see. And if you want an unfurnished apartment, you can rent one for 3 years. You get a 3-year lease with that, which is great. However, a lot of the unfurnished apartments don't come with a kitchen. So you need to be able or happy to go get a kitchen. That means cabinets, countertops, and appliances. In Nice, there are stores where you can walk in and they actually have your kitchen unit on display. And it's like a whole big unit, everything attached, and they'll just come and install it against the wall for you. And it may have the upper cabinets, lower cabinets, and it may have a cutout for appliances, and then you would just have to buy the appliances to fit in the cutouts. I would have preferred that, actually. However, getting back to how to determine how much it costs. So does it have an elevator or no elevator? Does it have air conditioning or no air conditioning? Air conditioning is not a given here. In our case, our apartment did not come with air conditioning, so we ended up having to buy portable air conditioners. We could have asked the landlord to get approval by the trustees to install it in the apartment, but when we thought about it, why should we spend all that money investing and improving the value of our landlord's apartment? We certainly couldn't take the air conditioning with us. It was much better to buy portable air conditioners. And we did a video. We did a video last summer where Jeff shows you the 2 air conditioner units, portable units that we bought, and how easily he was able to install them at our sliding glass doors. And so we were fine all summer. Speaking to those of you who think Nice is terrible to live in the summer, not so terrible. It's not any different than living anywhere else in the world where it gets hot in the summer. In most places in the US, it gets hot in summertime, and you have air conditioning. Well, that's what we had here, air conditioning. So it was no big deal to live in Nice in the worst part of the summer. The only thing is we timed our journeys outside. But so anyway, I digress. Getting back to how you figure out how much an apartment costs. Then the question is, do you want 1 bathroom or 2 bathrooms? Do you want 2 bathrooms with just the sink and tub in them and a separate toilet room? Do you want 2 toilet rooms? Because often the toilet rooms are separated from the rest of the bathroom, which I happen to like. That way it doesn't tie up the whole bathroom if someone has to go to the bathroom and someone wants to take a shower. So again, do you want the full baths? How many full baths? How many toilet rooms? Let's see, what other variables? Terrace. Do you want a terrace? You want a big terrace? You want a little terrace? Would you be happy with Juliet windows, which are the big, tall windows that open up, but there's nothing to walk outside? You just open the windows in your living room. Would you be happy with that? How many rentals are available right now? If there are only a few available, I would think the price is going to I would think the price is going to be high accordingly, because if there are 8 people chasing every available apartment, there are some landlords who will take advantage of the situation and they'll go to the highest bidder. I'm sure there are some rental controls here as far as how much landlords are allowed to charge for rent. But those are some of the things that go into deciding how much is it going to cost to rent an apartment. There's no way for anybody here in France who is renting an apartment to tell you, living in the US, how much it's going to cost to come here and rent an apartment. It depends on what day. First of all, if you're going to a city like here in Nice or even in Paris, you won't find a realtor to show you an apartment until you have a dossier prepared. In many cases, until you've already been pre-approved by Garantme, which is a company that acts as your guarantor. You have to have a guarantor to rent an apartment here. So until you present those things to a realtor or a potential landlord or management company, they may not even allow you to see an apartment. So then if you go out to see an apartment and you see something you love, you need to be ready to say, I want it that day. Because if you don't take it, you have no idea how many other people have appointments to see that apartment after you. And typically, during popular times of the year when people are chasing new rentals, there could be literally half a dozen people, maybe a dozen people, after any really good 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. I mean, there aren't a lot of them in this city. We wanted a 2-bath, 2-bedroom apartment, and the best we could do was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. And we grabbed it. If you go out and you look at apartments and a realtor says, okay, we're going to be showing this again, you can bet that if you say, well, let me think about it. Don't take too long thinking about it, because if you wait another day or so, somebody else will have grabbed that apartment right out from under and you'll be right back at the beginning again. So that's why it's impossible for me to tell you this is how much that apartment costs. I'm not a realtor. I'm not an expert on how much things cost. I can tell you the range can be anywhere between maybe $1,300 or $1,400 a month rent, way up. That doesn't tell you anything. So, and every apartment is different. Our apartment is different than the apartments in the building next door, and different than the apartments across the street from us, and maybe different than the apartment in this building but on a different floor. So there's the answer to that. The difference is that $3,000 in Naples, Florida, that did not include any utility. So in addition to the $3,000 in Naples, Florida, we were paying the sewer and water bill, which was about $70 every 2 months. We were paying electric bills between $350 and $400 every single month of the year, because if we didn't have the air conditioner on, we had the heat on. And it was very rare that we got to have nothing on. So we were accustomed to electric bills of between $350 and $400 every single month just for electric. Here in Nice, our new electric bills are around 87 or 88 euros a month. A big drop from $350 to $400 a month. Just the electric alone, what a savings. So there is that. Okay, now let's talk about telephone and internet. And I'm going to combine television somehow in this as well. So, telephone, first thing. We got cell phone service, French cell phone service, through a company called Free, F-R-E-E. And there's one right here in the center of Nice. We went to the store and we bought telephone service, and they gave us a SIM card that we use in our cell phones. And that service, now Jeff has one kind of service and I have another. We started out with the same service, which was very basic telephone service. We got unlimited calls, texts, and data with our cell phones. The price started out at $9.99 a month. That's $9.99 euros. So when we lived in the US, we, for years, had Verizon cell phone service. And it was a fortune, comparatively anyway. We had a service for people 50 or 55 and over, and it was $50 a month. And we got that probably 8 or 10 years ago. And for the longest time before we left, Verizon was trying to get us off that plan. They didn't even offer it anymore. They sort of let us stay on it. But they tried to get us off of that plan and get us onto one of their newer plans that would have cost us probably about $130, $140 a month total for 2 lines. So we ended up dumping Verizon. We went to Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile, I thought, was going to be perfect because the service was about, maybe $29 or $39 a month. And it gave us far more data, messaging, and calls than we would ever use. The problem is when we came to France, I couldn't use it to call the US, and I couldn't use it to make outgoing calls here, and I couldn't get 4-digit security codes. Okay, so how do we handle phone service? So we have the free mobile service, €9.99 per month. That's the basic plan. When we got here, we said to Free Mobile, we noticed that they offered internet cable. So we asked them what it would cost to have that set up for our apartment. And at the time, it was $29.99 per month to have internet and cable brought to our apartment. So we said, fantastic, great, sign us up. So we had internet and cable brought here. The internet is faster than any internet we ever had. I think the one in the US that we had through Comcast Xfinity was called Blast or Super Blast or whatever. Our internet bill in the United States was about $150 a month. That's a lot of money. So here, our internet bill started at about $29.99 a month. We took the internet and cable for $29.99, and at the time, I wanted to extend my phone service, my cellular service, to a plan that they were offering for $19.99 a month that included unlimited calls and texts to the United States and multiple other countries. Plus, if we ever went to the United States with our cell phones and our free mobile service, we could use that cell phone service in the United States. It was only going to cost $19.99. So my bill was going to jump from $9.99, $10 more dollars to $19.99. So for $19.99 on my cell phone through free, I was going to have unlimited calls, texts, and data here in France, and unlimited calls and texts to the United States. Fantastic. When we signed up for the internet and cable here at our apartment, they said, great, you know what, we've got a deal for you. Since you're going to take internet for your apartment, we're going to knock that plan, that $19.99 plan, we're going to knock it down to $9.99 a month. So for $9.99 a month, I have unlimited calls to the United States, unlimited texts to the United States, plus unlimited calls, texts, and data here in France. And multiple other countries are included in that extended service. $9.99 a month. Sort of a no-brainer. Okay, now, obviously we live in Nice, France. Probably one of the most well laid out, organized cities for pedestrians. There is no need to have a car here. You just don't need it. The point is, we don't need a car. We use public transportation. So as seniors, we were able to buy a senior pass on the public transportation system here, Ligne d'Azur. We downloaded the app on our cell phones, we clicked on it, and we bought a senior unlimited discount card. I don't remember the exact cost. I want to say it was about 175 euros for an entire year, unlimited use. That's pretty cheap. And after you've lived here through a full, or not a full, but after you've lived here into a new year, you need to file a France tax return. So when it comes time to file your France tax return, if you're just living here on your Social Security like we are, France does not consider Social Security taxable. They don't tax U.S. Social Security or pensions. They may tax other things. I don't know anything about other things they don't tax or tax. All I know is we only live on our Social Security and it's not taxed. So even though we're not going to owe any money to France, we still have to complete a tax declaration every single year, even if we have zero income or what they consider income every year. And at the end, it'll just say we owe zero taxes. With that tax return, we can take a copy of that tax return into the Ligne des Yeux office that manages the public transportation system. When it's time to renew our tram pass, our annual tram pass, we walk in there with the tram pass open on our app and our tax return that shows we owe zero taxes to France, and they will renew our annual tram pass for €0. Zero. Free. We get a whole year of public transportation free. And every year that we walk into the tax office with our new tax declaration that says zero taxes due, free public transportation. So we went from having a car in the US, 2 cars actually, insurance on 2 cars, paying maybe between $1,500 and $1,900 a year in car insurance, not to mention gas, maintenance, you know, all the car expenses. We have zero car expenses. We don't miss a car one bit. And if we need to go someplace where we really should have a car, like maybe when we go to Provence in the summertime, we may rent a car and drive to Provence because there's no public transportation that takes you out to where the lavender fields are and the beautiful countryside of Provence to see the lavender fields. You really need to have a car, or you could walk, but you'd be walking a long way. You could even ride a bicycle. Not our thing. So we'll just rent a car. It's far cheaper to rent a car than it is to own a car. So we have no car expenses. Okay, now let's talk about food, groceries. I love to go to the outside fresh markets, and I don't get to go as often as I'd like. Sometimes I get too lazy and I don't feel like walking down to Old Town with the cart to buy vegetables and fruits on the weekends. The best vendors, the most vendors are there on Saturdays and Sundays. But I'll go there typically with probably bring 20 euros. I never spend all 20 euros. Sometimes I'm lucky if I spend 10 euros. And I buy the freshest fruits, the freshest vegetables, and that's it. I also like to buy olives. They have one vendor here in Nice that has just all kinds of olives, everything you could possibly think of. And so I'll go there and I'll buy my olives there. And they also have vendors that sell some baked goods, some artisan breads, and there's one vendor occasionally he's there and he sells cheeses, and there's a refrigerator case that he's got with him. But mostly I go there for fresh fruits and fresh vegetables and flowers or plants. And so, again, I'm lucky if I spend 10 euros. The one thing about buying fresh fruits and vegetables here in France is there are no preservatives. There's nothing that's going to keep them fresh. And so I can't buy more than I know I'm going to use over the next few days. Some things I can actually stretch to a week, but most things, they're going to go bad. So I buy fruit that I know I'm going to use over the next 3 or 4 days, and I buy vegetables that I know I'm going to buy over the next 3 or 4 days. If I don't go to the outdoor market in Old Town to buy those things, then I just go to the Monoprix. So the other things that I'll buy at Monoprix are butter and eggs and cleaning products, paper products, toilet paper, paper towels, napkins. Occasionally we'll buy ice cream, but not all that often. And occasionally I will buy chicken and some steaks, ground beef, bacon. I'll buy those things at the grocery store. I would say that we probably spend about 150, 180 euros a week on food. We don't buy a lot of, in fact, we don't buy any prepared foods. I used to buy some things back in the US, I don't anymore. I don't really buy much canned stuff. I may buy some cans of tuna. Trying to think if there's anything else that I buy canned. I buy mostly all fresh food. So again, that's what we spend in the grocery store. Now, on occasion, if I feel like doing some real special dinner, we will go to a butcher shop and buy good steaks. Meat here is surprisingly inexpensive. When we first got here, I kept thinking I must be ordering the wrong meat because I couldn't get the price over 10 euros. I would go there and I would ask for 2 steaks, and initially, you know, they'd give us thin steaks, maybe, I don't know, a little over 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch thick. And coming from the US, we were accustomed to, you know, you want a thick steak, it would be like this. So then I figured out how to order steaks, and I figured out that if I wanted a good steak, I had to order a filet de boeuf, which is the equivalent of beef tenderloin or filet mignon. And so now I can just walk into the butcher shop where they have the whole big, long beef tenderloin, and I can say, I need 2 tranches, which is 2 slices, and I need them, you know, this thick. And then they cut me 2 slices, and they wrap them in fat, which is great because it keeps the meat moist while it's cooking. And so we'll go to the butcher shop, and sometimes I'll get some chicken while we're there. It depends. But we're buying all fresh foods, no prepared foods. I don't buy as much cheese as I used to. I used to always have camembert, brie, always used to have that in the refrigerator. And I have sort of cut down on that. We've been trying to eat very healthy, and so we've eliminated all the cheese that I used to eat. I'll buy it on occasion, and I'll buy hard cheeses, which are healthier for us than the heavy cream cheeses like brie and camembert. So I'll buy Emmenthal, which is like Swiss or Gruyere. But we're not really spending a lot of money on stuff to keep a big supply in the house. So of course, if you open our refrigerator, the refrigerator is always full, but it's full with condiments and things. Like there's always a little jar of cornichons, which are those little pickles. So we always have a jar of those, and we always have a jar of Dijon mustard, and I also have a different kind of mustard, like more of a stone ground mustard. And then we always have maple syrup in case we want to have pancakes. And I'm trying to think of what other things. Mayonnaise is always in the refrigerator. And you'll always find some fruits and vegetables in there because as soon as we run out or start running low, I go to the store and buy more, so we never get to the point where we're out. We always have coffee beans because the only coffee that we have in this house is fresh ground coffee. And so again, we're spending around 150, 180 a week, including paper goods and cleaning products. And let's see, the dog food is a little bit extra. Surprisingly, we can't get Bella's dog food in the grocery store. We have to go to the Brick-O-Rama, the hardware store. That's where we get Bella's dog food. So she eats Royal Canin dog food, and Royal Canin is made here in France, so it's easy to find. And it costs about the same thing here as it costs in the United States. It's probably around, I want to say 18 euros for a small bag. We eat lunch out probably 3 days a week. And if we do it 3 days a week, it's a lot. And typically we are eating lunch out primarily when our subscribers, people who subscribe to our YouTube channel, they have contacted us and said they're coming to town and asked if they can meet us. Some of them have known us already. And they will ask us to go out. And then subsequently, if they move here, we end up all becoming friends. And so then we start having lunches out with our friends. So if it isn't YouTube subscribers, people who have become our friends through the channel will just contact us and see if we want to go to lunch. Now, one thing that we have found as retirees here in France is that you start adjusting the way you eat to eat healthier. The French people eat their largest meal of the day at noon. And that's why typically the stores close between 12 and 2 or 2:30. It's because people need time to go and have a very relaxing, full, big meal. And so when Jeff and I started seeing a doctor that we go to for anti-aging, one of the things that he suggested as a way for us to keep our weight down or even lose weight is to stop eating 3 meals a day. So we wake up in the morning and typically we just start with a cup of coffee and we probably don't eat our first meal until lunchtime. And we make lunchtime the biggest meal of the day. And then if we're hungry around dinner time, 6, 7, we may do a little apéro here at home, or we may even go out, take a walk with the dog and sit down somewhere and have a glass of wine and some little thing to munch on, not a meal. And that has worked out great for us. And if I'm cooking, I will actually cook a full meal, what I would normally make for a full dinner, meat, starch, vegetable, or poultry, starch, fish, starch, whatever, vegetable, and we will have it at lunchtime. So we go out about 3 times a week, I would say. There are occasions when we go out more, and if it's a rainy week and we get lazy, we stay here and eat at home. And so when we go out, I would say typically it's costing us maybe between 50 and 80 euros. On occasion, if we go out with some friends and decide to, have a great time, have some champagne or a couple of glasses of wine or split a bottle of wine or whatever, it may go up over a little more than that, over 100. But that's what it's costing us. But because we're not eating 3 meals a day, it's not really costing us a fortune in food expenses. And we find that if we eat a really good, healthy lunch, we're rarely hungry at dinner time. So it's also changed our habits as far as socializing. We tend to very rarely go out to dinner in the evening. Unless we've got some friends who invite us to do something at dinner time, in which case we'll probably have little or no lunch, and we'll let that dinner meal be the big meal. So we're saving money there. Also, as far as doing things that are better for our health that actually save us a little money is, we had this picture in our mind that when we moved to Nice, to France, we'd be sitting at cafes all day as retired people, just whiling away the hours, watching the people go by under our sunglasses, sipping wine, one glass after another glass. Oh, how wonderful, sipping wine, eating baguettes. You know what? It doesn't really happen that way. And the reality is the wine is filled with sugar, filled with calories, and if you're trying to watch your weight, you really can't do that. It's great when you're a tourist. You can come here and you sit at the cafes and, it's a beautiful day in the sunshine. Let's go have some wine. And then it's dinner time. Oh, let's have more wine. Well, we don't do that. So Jeff and I, for the most part, have switched to just having wine on occasion. For the most part, if we go out to lunch by ourselves, we are drinking sparkling water. That's it. Just sparkling water, and we'll get some slices of lemon or slices of lemon and orange to spice it up, and that's all we need. On occasion, Jeff may order a soft drink, but very rarely are we getting wine, unless we're with other people, as I said, and they want to split some wine with us or have a cocktail, or we're going to be out there for many hours. So we've reduced our sugar intake and therefore reduced our wine purchases. So, we found some great everyday wine that is less than €4 a bottle that I talked about in another video. We always have a few bottles of that on hand because I use that when I cook coq au vin. And so I'll typically put half the bottle into the coq au vin, and then Jeff and I will finish the other half with our lunch, or later that night for a little apéro out on the terrace as the sun goes down. So we're not drinking as much wine. Now in the U.S., we would go out, a lot. I probably went out to dinner in the U.S. more nights than we cooked at home. I think I rarely cooked at home, maybe once a week. And the rest of the time we went out, and it always included wine or a cocktail or whatever. So we drank a lot more alcohol back then. Now here, there just isn't the interest, and it makes the wine that we do drink, whether it's an inexpensive wine or a very expensive wine, it makes it all that much of a luxury. This beautiful glass of red wine from Santa Emilia. So you have to think about things like that. When you're living here, it's a lot different than coming here as a tourist. When you're living here and you still want to stay in shape or lose weight, you can't be drinking wine all the time, or you're not going to reach your goals. Let's talk about medical. In the United States, we were on Medicare, and the deduction was $175 a month for Part B, which covered doctor's visits and prescription drugs for us anyway. We had a Medicare supplemental plan through Aetna, and there was no premium. We lucked out on that, but we did have that deduction out of our Social Security checks of $175 a month, and now that $175 has gone up to $185 a month. Well, a couple of days before we moved to France, we went to the Social Security office, and I guess you can still do that, assuming it hasn't closed. And we went there and we said, we don't want to pay this anymore. We want to get out of that. And so the man said to us, well, we're happy to do that, but I want you to know, and you're going to sign this paper that says you have been told, if you come back to the US and want to get back on Social Security or get this Part B back, there's going to be a 10% penalty for every 12 months you were outside the US. And we said that's fine. And I'll tell you why that's fine. Well, first of all, we have no plan to ever go back to the United States, so we have nothing to worry about. We've traded a number 37 in the world health system, at least that's what it was last year before the current administration started tearing down all the wonderful things about it. We've traded that for the number 1 healthcare system in the world here in France. If you come to France and you think about that $185 deduction from your Social Security check, first of all, Medicare can't be used here in France. So what good is that $185 a month doing you? No good. You're giving it to the government. Do you really love the government that much that you want to donate to their coffers? And if you're a couple, multiply 185 times 2 times 12 months a year. That's what you're donating to the United States. If that's what you want to do with your money, more power to you. We would rather have that money in our pockets. And we know that hypothetically, if we ever went back to the United States and we had banked all of that 175 or 185 in a separate bank account, and then we had to pay that 10% penalty, the chances are we wouldn't live long enough to empty that bank account of all the money that they gave us in our pockets instead of getting in their pockets. So do the math and you'll see that I'm right. Okay, so we came here. After we were living here for 3 months, we were allowed to apply to get on the national health care system. Wonderful. Took us 2 months to be approved for that and get our little carte vitale. And before we got the carte vitale, we got our we got our France Social Security number. That's the order of things. You apply to get on the healthcare system. Once you're approved, they send you an attestation de droit, which says you have rights in the healthcare system. And on that paper is your France Social Security number. So that's how you get the Social Security number. You have to apply for healthcare benefits. Once you have the paper with the Social Security number on it, you're in the health system. Congratulations. You don't need that little green card. It's just basically an ID card with all of your information on it. But that piece of paper, that attestation that you get with your Social Security number on it, that's all you need to go to the doctor or the pharmacy and get your expenses reimbursed. Okay, so how much does that cost us to be on it? Well, they base the cost on your income and your taxes here in France. So they don't count Social Security as income or your pension as income here in France. So based on that, if you have no other income, you will pay 0 in social charges. That's what they call the charges they assess to cover the cost of being on the national health care plan. Now, if you have some income, small income, passive income, whatever, you may have a small social charge. It could be, a far, far, far less than the 185 for that Part B coverage. And the healthcare plan covers, depending on what services, between 40 and 70% of your services. In most cases, up to 70% of your services they reimburse. And we're starting at a point where, let's say, a doctor's office visit is 29 euros. For the first visit at 29 euros. And if the government, through the health care plan, is going to reimburse 70% of it, you're only paying 30% of that out of pocket. They're going to reimburse you all the rest. Where'd you get a doctor's appointment costing you like that in the United States? You'll never find a doctor who's going to charge you under $10 for a doctor's visit in the United States, anywhere. So you're saving money on that. Now, we did opt to buy a mutuelle plan, and the mutuelle plan picks up the difference between the cost of the service and what the government health plan picks up. So I'm going to use 100% just to make my point. So if the healthcare system is going to pay 70%, the mutual plan will pay that other 30%. However, some doctors, specialists, will charge more than what the government, the French government, says is a uniform customary rate for the services they're offering. And so those doctors may charge 200% of what the government says is uniform and customary. So you would have to get a mutual plan that covers 200% of the cost of the services, meaning that the national health care plan will pick up their 60 or 70%, and your mutual will cover all the way up to 200%. Some doctors, surgeons, I understand, may charge, they may charge 400% of what the government says is customary. If you know you're going to have to get some surgery in the upcoming year, then when you buy your mutual plan, you say, I'm going to need some surgery, and I already have a quote from a surgeon, and I know it's going to be 400% of what the government says is uniform and customary. So you'd want to get a mutual plan that covers up to 400%. So you have to be very careful. But for the most part, for Jeff and I, ever since we got our mutual plan, when we go to the doctor, we may advance the money to her, our general physician. She still wants us to, pay with our debit card. We pay for the office visit, and it's between 25 and 28 euros. And then I wait about a week, and then I look at my account on Amelie.com, French insurance, that's the company that manages the insurance plan. I can go on there and check for reimbursements, or I could even look in my bank account, my French bank account, and I can see where I was reimbursed the France National Health System, and then additionally reimbursed by our mutual plan that picked up the balance of it. So in the end, our cost that day was zero. When I go to the pharmacy, it's all totally zero. I go there, they stick my little carte vitale in a machine, it reads it, they punch in the cost of the prescription I'm picking up, and every single time I say how much, and they say, covered, all taken care of. So the healthcare system paid part of it, my mutual paid the rest, no out of pocket. And I'm sure that just in dental costs alone, the savings, we have already more than made up the cost of the mutual for, several months. So there is that savings as well. So, we're just saving money by being here. So let's see, what else do we spend money on? On occasion, we may go shopping and impulsively buy clothes. I might. I don't do it anywhere near as often as I used to do it in the United States, mostly because, again, we're just living on our Social Security checks. And so I don't have the wherewithal to just go to the department store and spend a couple $100s on a new outfit that looks really great. Some of you may say, but the YouTube, doesn't YouTube monetize your videos? The monetization for us anyway, we are still a small channel. On videos that we allow to be monetized. And what that means is that we allow YouTube to let the advertisers place ads on a video. And if we allow the advertisers to place ads on the video, YouTube gets money from those advertisers, and they share the money with us as a royalty. So it's not a paycheck, nowhere near a paycheck. And they will only issue a payment if you earn over $100 a month in monetization. And, sad to say, we don't always get a payment from YouTube. We never count on that money, and the money that does come from YouTube goes right back into YouTube. So, I mean, for example, on our YouTube channel, we have an option to buy us a wine that you'll see at the end of this video. It says, you want to support our channel, buy us a wine. And for as little as $5, you can buy us an imaginary glass of wine. Well, we let all of that money ride until we had enough. We were saving up for a drone. So we didn't want to take the money out of our savings account to buy ourselves a drone to use for our videos. So I waited, I watched what it would cost to buy a good drone, and I waited until last week, actually. We finally had enough to buy a drone with the money that people have donated to our channel. So it's not money that we're using to go wine and dine ourselves. We're using it to cover expenses of our channel. So, you know, the drone arrived this past weekend, and when we have some time, we'll figure out how to use the drone and then figure out some times when it would be great to have shots with a drone. My big concern is, you know, the drone was like, you know, 500 euros. I don't want to lose the drone in a tree or in the Mediterranean. So we have to do some practicing with it, maybe a while before you see anything coming off the drone. But we're not like making money here. We are literally living on our Social Security benefits. And oh my God, if they go away, then we have to live off of our savings account, and we're not sure how long that will last. I mean, we want to live for another 30 years at least. I'm not sure we have enough money in our savings account to cover us that long. So hopefully I have satisfied your curiosity and answered that question. Can you live in the south of France on the Côte d'Azur in Nice for less than it costs to live in the United States? How is that possible? It is. It is. It is literally costing my husband Jeff and I probably around 50%, sometimes probably less, than what we paid to live in Florida. And Florida is not typically an expensive place to live. Here we are. If we went back to the US on our Social Security and tried to live there, we could not afford to live the life that we lived in Florida before we moved. We couldn't afford it on our Social Security. We would probably have to get some little one-bedroom apartment somewhere, definitely not by water anywhere. Of course, we have no interest in going back there. So anyway, hopefully I've answered any questions you may have had about the cost of things, how much it costs for, you know, a typical American couple like ourselves that are retired. We're not allowed to work and increase our income. So, you know, what we've got coming in from Social Security and what little savings we were able to mass together before we moved, that's it. That's all we've got till the rest of our lives. So think about it. Think long and hard before you move. It can be done. We have single friends, single senior ladies that are subscribers to this channel who have come here all alone. There's Janice in France up in Fontainebleau, beautiful Fontainebleau, who is doing it all alone, and it can be done. You save a lot of money living here compared to what it costs to live in the United States these days. So we love our subscribers. We love you to pieces. And for those of you, the thousands of you who don't subscribe, we know you're out there. We know that there are probably 3 and 4 times the number of subscribers we have in viewers that we have, because we look at the analyzation of our channel. So we know you're out there. Do us a favor. Click subscribe. Become a subscriber. It doesn't cost anything. And you know what? You'll help our channel grow. And that's what it's all about. We're not doing this for the money, truthfully, but we love helping people, and the more subscribers that we get, the more YouTube will show our video to other people who might also be interested in it. So do us a favor, click on the thumbs up saying that you like this video, found it of value. Click subscribe. It's free. There's even a little bell. You see that little bell out there to the side? If you click that, every time we upload a new video, you'll get a notification that we put another video up that you might find interesting, especially if you are interested in France, considering a move here, or already living here looking for things that you haven't found yet. So anyway, we thank you so much. I'm sorry that Jeff couldn't join me today, but he'll be back. He's around. At least Bella came. She slept through everything, but better than her barking through everything. So thanks again for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would? 'Cause I'm just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever?